What if I told you that this card has twinkling stars and a Santa who wiggles his way down the chimney? Today I'm partnering with Pear Blossom Press to show you how to use their twinkle lights combined with the snap and slide mechanism to create the most magical holiday card. And it's easier than you think.
So for the project that I'm going to be doing, we're going to be using this bunch of goodies. First off, I've got a Glimmer plate that has really pretty stars. This one is called Magic Wonderland. There are a lot of hot foil plates that have stars, so use what's in your stash, or you can pick this one up at Spellbinders. We've got the Pear Blossom Press stamp and die bundle. That's going to make it so that I can put a nice little push button so you know where to light up your lights. The lights I'm using are going to be the Twinkle lights because Christmas, twinkling, I love that. So that's what we're going to be using for that. I'm also going to be using a die set from Spellbinders that I recently picked up and couldn't wait to use. This one is called Chimney Caper, and it has Santa head first down a chimney. So we're going to use that, and we're going to make him move using this new snap and slides from Pear Blossom Press. So let me go ahead and clear this all off, and we're going to get started first off with our hot foiling. So I've just placed my hot foil plate onto my Glimmer system platform. This is a very big plate, and for good foiling results, what I found is that heating it up a couple of times usually will help it a lot better when you have something so large, because it has a lot of metal to heat up. So to do that, it's already at platform ready, so I've already had it heating up a little bit. I'm just going to turn it off at the base, turn it back on, and let it sit and heat up again. So it's going to get completely ready again. I probably am going to, this one is a really big one. I'm probably going to do it maybe a third time. The only downside to doing it too many times is that you might get some overfoiling. But I'd rather clean up some of the overfoiling than have to not have it hot enough for the first round. So I'm going to also put my thin shim and Glimmer spacer pad over the top to help it also heat up. I'm going to push this off to the side. Looks like it is pretty hot, but I just put the plate on. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it off and do it one more time. And while I'm waiting for it to heat up, I'm going to go ahead and cut my foil. So to do that, I'm going to use the quick cutter. You can use scissors, you can use a rotary blade, whatever you want. This comes with a self-healing mat. It has all its numbers on there, so you can see exactly what it was. And then it's got this little platform that has a couple of little feet that keep it just a little bit above. So that means you can put your foil underneath it and cut it with no problem. Also comes with a couple of blades. One is for paper, so yes, you can use this as a paper trimmer. And one says foil. I recommend always use the foil one when you're doing foil, because otherwise, if you use paper, you're probably going to dull it a little bit and you may not get as nice and pretty of a cut. I'm also going to use, I was thinking of just using silver, but no, I'm going to use this one that is Speckled Prism, because look at that. And the plate that I'm using does have a little bit of solid space on there, which means that the speckled, the little sparkles, will show. This is for the stars that we don't put lights on, okay? But I think that's going to be really, really pretty. I mean, look at that. So now I just need a panel of foil that is going to be about the same size as the panel for my card, and that is basically going to be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I've got a card panel here, and I'm just going to make sure that it's going to fit, and I can slide the paper over so I can cut right there, and I can slide the foil over. I'm just going to extend it a little bit. There we go. So now I know I'm going to have enough space there. Then I'm going to take my foil blade, press down a little bit to hold it in place, because like I said, the feet are here, and we're just gonna, there we go, and now we have our piece. It is really fast and easy to use this, and it is my preferred method, but sometimes I don't take it out, so you can, like I said, use your scissors or whatever for cutting it. So now I can put this over the top and we'll be able to foil it. The way that you always do with foiling is you always want the shiny side to be facing away from the cardstock. The matte side is not as pretty, has an adhesive in it. That's what makes it hot foil. The heat and the pressure from your die cutting machine are what's going to make that, is going to activate that adhesive so it sticks to your card. So you always want to make sure the shiny side is facing away. If you're doing toner foiling, same kind of thing. Always have the shiny side facing away from your card. Okay, this looks like it should be pretty much ready. I'm going to go ahead and put this with the shiny side of my foil touching my plate, the matte side touching my card. Just pop that right down in there. Put these back over the top. And you always want to use your thin shim first. It actually is better at, it is better for the heat than the spacer pad is. I'm going to hit the timer. And once that stops blinking, everything should be ready for us to run this through our die cutting machine. Okay, so that light is on now, so the timer is done. We're going to go ahead and run this through my Platinum 6. And you just want to go one time through, so go kind of slow. Just give it some even pressure all the way through. If you go too fast, you might not get enough pressure in some spots, and it may cause it not to work quite as well. But let's see how we did. Okay, so when I look at this, I can see the little indentations of that foil on my panel there. So let's go ahead and pull that off and look at all of those lovely stars. Now, what I said before about a little bit of overfoiling, I can see some. But usually, I mean, you can see the little dots in between. That doesn't hurt this panel because it's just a scattering of stars. But if you get something like that that you don't like, use an eraser. And a regular rubber eraser a lot of times will work, but you can also use a sanding eraser if it's really bugging you. I think this looks pretty as it is, and it's possible when I add a little ink to it that it'll take some of that off, or we won't really even notice it. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on that part. So I'm going to use some Simon Hurley ink to ink up my background. I'm starting off with some High Tide. This is actually going to be at the bottom, and it's going to be covered up. I'm not sure what all ink I've got on my brush, by the way, but it's going to be mostly covered up by our Santa at the bottom. So I'm starting off with that, and then I'm going to come up with some darker shades that are going to go up towards the top. So it's going to look kind of like, you know, you've got your darkest part far further away from the buildings, and sometimes you have a little bit of a glow, I guess, behind buildings, because there are possibly lights on, street lights, all those things. So there's our High Tide. Next, I'm going to come in with some Clear Skies. And I do believe that my High Tide needs to be re-inked. And I have recently re-inked my Clear Skies. So this one is probably going to be a little bit darker of a color coming down. Or more saturated, I should say. And all of the things that I'm using today, I will make sure is listed down in the description for you guys in case you're interested. Okay, and then we're going to come in with some Midnight Snack, and that's going to be the real dark one up at the top. And this one is very saturated. Now, what I found that makes it so that the colors come in really good and you get a really good blend is usually going over a couple of times, couple of layers of ink. So right now, there is a lot up at the top, not as much down below. It's fine this way, but I am going to bring the color down a little bit further, not adding any more ink, no more Midnight Snack, not adding any more ink. And this is mostly so I can get most of that ink off of my brush so I can come back in with some Clear Skies and do the second layer. The second layer of ink is what really makes all of my ink blending pop. Always looks so much better with that second layer. So I think I got most of it off. Just going to pounce on there to load up my brush. And we're going to come in with some more, and we're going to bring that color down and also go over that line between the really dark Midnight Snack and the lighter Clear Skies. And I think that looks pretty good. Like I said, this part down here, it's not really anything I'm worried about because most of that's going to be covered anyway. And I think it's just light enough to give the impression of being snow behind the background. Okay, I'm going to come back in with a little bit more of my clear skies. Try to darken it up a little bit more, and that line between the two colors. And then just slowly blend it out going down. So that is going to be my background. And you probably noticed that most of any kind of extra is kind of brushed off already. And those stars just pop. They just look so pretty. So you wouldn't actually have to add lights, but if you have lights, why not, right? So we're going to go ahead and get started on the next step, which means I need to assemble Santa. So I've got everything die cut out, including 2 layers for our chimney, but I got them both out of red. Now they're not the same red, but they're close enough, and I want to grunge up the mortar a little bit on this one. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of Weeping Willow ink and randomly just kind of add it to the back here. So it's going to make it pop just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. I think I'm going to add a little bit more on there because it's still a little bit too samey for me, but this is going to really look cool. So you can take your die cuts and add some color to it wherever you want to change it up a little bit so it's not quite so samey. Okay, do a little darker in that area, do a little lighter over here, and let's see how that one looks. And I kind of like that. I think I'm going to add a little bit more soot around the top though. Part of that's going to be covered up with some of the snow, but it's still going to look really cool. And I'm just using some Weeping Willow because I didn't really want black, but I did want to darken it up a little bit. So I think that is going to look good. So let's go ahead and start assembling all of this together. I added a little bit more ink to some other pieces, like a little bit of blue to the snow and a little bit more red around Santa's belly, make him kind of look a little bit more rounded. So that's going to be fun. And I'm just going to start gluing the pieces together. This is not rocket surgery. It is pretty easy to do. So I'm going to go ahead and do the white part on him first. I have a tendency to do the black first, which means I put the belt on underneath the fuzz, and that's not the way it goes. We need the belt to go on over his fur trim because the fur trim is actually attached to the coat. Yeah, I've made the mistake before and had to go back and redo it. So this just goes. One thing I like about the Spellbinders dies is they make it so easy. There's actually an embossed line on the die cut to show you right where everything goes. So the buckle has a little tab right there in the center that you tuck behind it. Behind the belt rather, and I'm just going to slide that on, and then I'll glue everything in place, and then we can attach our belt to Santa. There's our little Santa, just adjusting his buckle a little bit. There we go. So now here he is, and he's going to be upside down. Oh, I forgot. I need to add the little fur on his boots and his boots. Those need to be added on. And then this part is going to be done. We can start assembling the rest, which next is going to be actually putting together all the things for the chimney. So here is our brickwork for the front of our, oh, this is cool. I do like that variation of color on the chimney. Now if I can just let go of it, right? There we go. And just lining it up with the edges, and now we have our chimney. And then I'm going to add the snow over the top. And that's going to be basically our main pieces. So now what we need to do is figure out exactly where we're going to put the lights. Number one, and then number two, how we're going to have Santa, because I want him to wobble. This is the Twinkle light. It came in a 5-pack. I'm down to my last one in this pack. And the way that it works, on the front, just so you can see, there is a plus sign there. Got a really thin battery. You do need to make sure you get the right size battery if you ever need to replace it. And this one, the number on there is 2016, I believe. And that means it's a 1/16 of an inch tall. And the way that it goes, you're going to take the plus sign, which is the top side, not the waffle side, but the top side, and slide it in. So the plus touches the plus. You just slide that in. If it doesn't slide in, you've got it on the wrong side, because she's also got a couple little barriers there, so you can't put it in the wrong way. So we're going to slide that in, and I always test it. And to test it, I just hit the button to make sure it comes on. This one is very similar to the Easy Light in that it's got 3 little light bulbs, 3 little LED lights on the end of wires. But this one, the Easy Light, they all come at once, on at once. This one, they twinkle, so they're going to be offset a little bit. And I love that effect. So what I'm doing now, I've got everything laid out kind of where I think it's going to go. None of this is adhered down. And I'm going to, as you can see, I'm going to put this so that it's going to be around Santa. I don't want it to go behind him. So I'm going to lay these out and just kind of, well, I don't actually have to do that. I just need to figure out where I want to put my holes. I want to have a little hole poke behind it. And I think what I've done in the past is I've picked one of the markings on there, one of the stars or one of the snowflakes that's already on there, and use that as a guide. This time I think I'm going to actually not mess up any of the foil, not punch through any of that. Instead, I'm just going to punch through a couple of other places. So I'm going to grab a pencil and just put a little mark in a couple places. So we're going to have basically we're going to have 3 different snowflakes. And then I'm going to poke a hole with my pokey tool through that hole, through that spot, to create a little hole for the light to shine through. I like to have a little border all the way around my cards that you're going to see some white. So I'm going to trim this down just a touch. Looks like, I think I'm going to actually trim it on both sides. So I'm going to cut it a little bit shorter. So I'm going to do, the final measurement is going to be 4 by 5 1/4, because this is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card. And that's going to give us 1/8 of an inch all the way around. So I'm just going to cut about 1/8 of an inch off of all 4 sides. And now we're going to have this. This is basically done. We have exactly where we want. I've got my 3 little holes. I am going to poke through there a little bit more. This one, I still think it's going to be fine. It is a little close to the edge, but that's going to still be fine. Okay, I'm putting a little bit of tape. This is the Best Ever Craft Tape from Spellbinders on the back, and that's going to hold my panel right in place when I put it down. So I'm just going to place that down with that 1/8 of an inch all the way around. And now I'm going to take my pencil, find my holes again, and just draw a little dot in there through each of those holes, because that's where I want my lights to go. And I'm also going to double check and make sure that that is showing up. I also think that my card is a little bit bigger than A2. So let's just double check this. Yep, it is a little bit off, so I'm going to go ahead and trim it down so it's going to be easier for me to line it up correctly over those lights. Okay, so now I have 3 little dots where I want my lights to go. And we're going to go ahead and tape these in place. I'm just going to use some Scotch tape. And we're going to tape each of those 3 down right over those dots. I'm also going to make sure that with my light, there's 2 sides. One side has got a little bump that is yellow. The other side looks like metal, because that's where the metal is attached. So I'm going to make sure I'm laying them down with the yellow piece up. Okay, and I like to double check everything to make sure it is going to work the way I want it to before I move on to the next step. So let me take the rest of the excess of this tape off, because don't need it. I'm going to put my panel back over the top and check the lights to make sure that the lights work as I expect. And so that's right about, I believe that's about where it was. And it looks like these are pretty much perfect. I do think that that is a little bit too close to the edge, though. I'm going to move that one. Let's move it. Just take that one off. I'm going to poke another hole. See if I can flatten this one out a little bit. So I don't think anyone's really going to notice that there's an extra hole there. I'm gonna grab my pokey tool and let's move it in a bit. I think right about here in this big piece of blue space is gonna be a good place for it. There we go. That is going to look fabulous. And turning on the lights makes it easier for you to line everything up too. So next what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to go ahead and tape down the wires so it's going to be easy. Again, this is going to open this direction, and I think I want to have my button right about here. We're going to have it down at the bottom. So let's go ahead and tape down our wires so they are out of our way. And again, I'm just using Scotch tape for all of this. And I'm going to have my button just a little bit in from the edge. And I'm going to adhere that down with some double stick tape on the back. There we go. By the way, you can add your button before, your stamped button before you add your actual mechanism. I like doing it this way and then adding my actual stamp piece later. Oh, that's going to be so cool. Next, we're going to grab out the world's best foam tape. Now, one bad thing about this is Amanda is working very hard to make it so that we can get this stuff again. And right now is out of stock, so I am hoarding mine and I'm only using it with my light up cards, but I have to use it with my light up cards because I absolutely love it. One thing, you do not want to cover up your light, and yeah, I think I'm gonna go across the top, but you don't want to cover it up because if you cover it up, it's not going to work. I'm gonna come down a little bit from there. I also like to have everything level. I don't like saggy middles, so I'm going to cover most of my card with this tape to make sure that I don't have any issues. And then before pulling off any of the release paper, I'm going to try this one more time and see how it does. Does it still look good? And it looks pretty good. I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in place now. I'm going to use the lights as my guide because I can. So I know where the little holes are. I know where my lights are, and I just need these to line up, and it's going to be right about 1/8 of an inch in. And this is going to help me get everything lined up pretty well. I'm going to say that that is good enough. Okay, no, it's not. It's crooked. So one of the great things about the tape and why I really want more of it is that it is repositionable. So I'm not going to ruin that panel that I made. Actually, the foam is actually coming off onto my panel. That is totally fine too, because you can put it on either way. So it doesn't ruin my panel. I mean, I did bend it a little bit to get it off, but it's still going to be fine. And since I am rearranging things anyway, why not straighten that up a bit because it was a little bit crooked. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put that on. But another tool that you can use, it's going to help, is going to be your T-square. I've got the A7 here. This one has 1/8 of an inch jig and a 1/4 of an inch jig. I'm doing 1/8 of an inch all the way around. So I'm going to flip it over so that the groove side is facing my desk. And then I can just slide this piece in there. And slide that in, and now I can line this up with the edge that is right there. And this should be, assuming that I did all of the measurements and stuff right, it should be about right. And I'm going to say that that is pretty much close enough. So there we go. There's the front of our card, and it's lovely. It's got lights, but it's not done. We need to add Santa. So where I want Santa, I want this to go across the bottom. I want my little chimney to be there, and I want Santa to fit in there as well. And we're going to have him on a snap and slide. So I just thought of something I think I'm going to change a little bit, and that is because I want to make sure I've got enough space. Again, the tape is where I can reposition it, so it's going to be fine. The snap and slide is a little thicker, so let me put one of them together. They just snap right together. And you're going to have that much space. So it's going to give you movement, right? So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put one of these attached underneath my panel and have a hole coming through. So if I'm going to do that, I want my hole to be right about here. I'm going to draw a bigger circle so I can see it. And the Stamp and Die bundle has a die that should be pretty much perfect for this. Let me just double check that. So we need to make sure that it is big enough for our piece to go through. So 1/4 inch is usually good, but not so big that everything's going to go through it. So this is going to be the perfect size. I just need to cut a hole right where that is. So I'm going to remove this one more time and add that hole so we can adhere our snap and slide. Don't you love it when I make mistakes so that you guys don't have to? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and adhere this piece in right through that hole. And it's going to kind of float there. And that is totally fine. I just wanted it to be able to have a little bit of wiggle room so it wasn't going to be flush up against any piece. Okay, so now you can see it can move. Great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back in place. I moved the piece of tape that was across here so that it's not going to interfere with our little mechanism, and it's still not going to interfere with our lights. And now we can go ahead and put this back down again, just like we did before, using our T-square to line everything up. So I'm pretty much going to be doing everything in reverse order. And that's so that I can make sure I have enough of a gap in between everything and make sure it all fits right. I'm going to use my sticky spots. This is also from Pear Blossom Press, which is basically a sticky dot. I'm going to put that right on top of my snap and slide. And that's what's going to adhere our little Santa on. And let's go ahead and put him on there. Okay, so you can see how much space we basically need for our chimney, right? So the chimney's going to go on here, but I need to make sure it's popped up enough. And the Pear Blossom Press tape is going to be the right height. So after doing a little bit of experimentation, it looks like I need a little bit more height for my chimney so that it's going to give Santa enough room to just move around a little bit. He doesn't need to move around much, but I want him to be able to wobble back and forth, right? So I'm adding a second layer of my World's Best foam tape over the top. It is going to make this a little bit thicker, and you may want to put it in a bubble wrap, a bubble mailer when you send it off. But let's see how that's going to work. So I've got this down. It's nice and secure, and I can move my Santa so he is kind of wobbling in the top of that chimney, and that is exactly the look that I was going for. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and take off that last bit of release paper and pop this down in place, and it's going to stay where I put it. So this is the part, don't take it off until you are ready. You know that that is right where you want it. Okay. And it looks like I put it a little bit low because Santa is sneaking out the top. Let's put that a little bit higher up. And I'm thinking I'd also position the second piece of that foam a little low. Had a little bit of it peeking out to the top that wasn't quite the same height. There we go. All right. So you do want to make sure your top pieces are level. Let's go this one more time. I do need him to have a little bit, be up a little bit higher so he doesn't move too far. So there's a couple of ways that you can add the last bit. We're going to need to put our snow down at the bottom, and we need to put a button there right about here. So we know where that's going to be. It's going to be down in this corner. So you can either stamp directly on the cardstock before you put it all down, or you can stamp out it onto another piece of cardstock and cut it out. That circle die that we just used for adding the snap and slide, it's the same size that you're going to use to do the little button if you want to do that. I'm going to attempt to stamp it, number one, correct direction and not too much ink, but I am going to stamp it off onto a piece of cardstock just to make sure that I've got everything right. And that is the right direction I want it to have with the press above it, because I cannot really see those little letters. So I'm going to put my little stamp right here, over here in the corner, approximately where I know that that's going to be, and that's going to be my button. If I decide I don't like that, because it is a little bit, I can always cut one of those out and put it over the top. So now I'm going to add a double layer of foam on the back of everything. I think I'm going to actually adhere it right to the panel, and then I can put that piece over the top because I want it to also be, first off, popped up from the bottom, but I also need it to be popped up a little bit on the sides here to make sure that it is nice and flat. I've already done my double layer of Pear Blossom Press World's Best Foam Tape. So this is pretty thick. I have a feeling that if I let this one go, I'm going to have to hand deliver it to whoever gets it. Okay, that looks like it is about right. So I'll go ahead and take the release paper off and position that right at the bottom where the edge of my panel is. I think I actually cut this a little bit wider than the panel, but I think that is okay. And there we go. And this, it's a good thing I put the foam there because it's going to press all the way through the foam to our button. That's something I did not think about. I probably could have just mounted, because of this extra part, I could have mounted my light behind here instead of underneath and saved a layer of that foam. But that's part of what we learned. So now we have our little Santa and he wobbles. And now all I need is a sentiment. And this one I think I'm going to, I may be able to stamp directly on there. If it doesn't work out, you know what I can do? I can stamp an extra one and put it over the top. So I've got some sentiments here. This one I think fits the most, just space-wise. And it says, Cozy wishes for a Merry Christmas. So I can put that right in the middle there. Let me grab out another stamp block. And we're going to just stamp this down. Fingers crossed. A light tap, and there we go. And that's going to finish up that card. I think that turned out super cute. And take a look at the twinkling. Love it, love it, love it. Hope that you are inspired. Oh, I just thought of something else I want to do. I've got all these extra bricks that we cut out from that. I think I want to make it so that it looks like Santa is really struggling. So let me adhere a few of those down. That's going to be the final touch. This part is so fun. I love that Santa is destroying this chimney because he kind of went in wrong. Goodness. Okay, I'm going to say that that's finished. I didn't use all of the bricks, but didn't have to. I think this turned out really, really cute. So here is a card that brings the magic of the twinkling lights with that little interactive movement, and I really hope that this has inspired you. This is a card that is sure to wow everyone on your holiday list. If you love this project, please give us a big thumbs up and let me know in the comments what you'd like to see me light up next. A huge thank you to Pear Blossom Press for sponsoring today's video, and if you want to explore more of the full line of card lighting products, be sure to check out the link down below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.